Now we're going to go over how to find hedge funds, the right point of contact and their buy box, how to find the deals that hedge funds are looking for free, right? Using resources like Zillow, LinkedIn, and how to structure your deals for maximum payout. And lastly, how to properly communicate with hedge funds so you don't get blacklisted. Just so you know, at the end of this, we'll also have a link. I will be following up this training with a 3-week bird dog training starting. I think we're going to do it on next Wednesday around the same time, 2 p.m. Eastern. And we'll kind of go over that as well. So let's go. Now, why do we work with hedge funds, right? So one hedge fund has the buying power of 2,000 mom and pop buyers. Like Kevin mentioned, we're looking at 500 million to $1 billion that they're looking to deploy in real estate, single family rentals. When we work with mom and pops, we're talking 1, maybe 2 deals a month, maybe none a month. So just the buying power of hedge funds is massive, right? They have to spend this money, right? They have quotas to hit. They have timelines to hit to deploy this capital. Sometimes they buy not so good deals just to hit this quota. The way I like to think about it is, you have a bucket of water. Every drop of water in that bucket is a property, right? So some of those properties don't have to be the best deals. They just have to fit their buy box, right? They know eventually once this thing is full of water, full of properties, it evens out for them. And then the decision maker isn't emotionally tied to the property or the fund, right? So we're talking to these acquisition members at a fund. They just need these properties and these numbers to fit their buy box. If the asking price works, they're going to buy it. And then hedge funds rarely back out last minute. Like I mentioned, being 7, 8 years into this, working with hedge funds, there's really only one time I can remember where hedge funds dropped out of the market. And that was during COVID, right? A lot of people didn't know what was going on. Really, the only time I saw them stop buying. And it's about a 2 to 3 month period, and they just pretty much picked up where they left off. And they always pay more than other buyers, right? And so you'll see here 85% to 90% of ARV, right? Our typical mom and pop, right? We're looking in the 70% range, 75%, and then also minus repairs. And so here, we're going to go over an example of a deal like this, right? A hedge fund that paid 90% of ARV. We'll kind of go over what it looked like, numbers, things of that sort. And so again, I mean, this is straight from Zillow. You'll see the address, the 167 purchase price, right? So this was the price I had on the contract between my company and the seller, right? So we had that contract signed, 167,000. And here's the deal breakdown. This is pretty much what an email that was sent to me by a hedge fund once the deal was done. And so we'll kind of go over these numbers a little bit with y'all, bounce back and forth a little bit. So just try to follow me here. I'll try to make it smooth for y'all. Again, that purchase price of 167,000, right? So the recorded price is the contract price. And after everything was said and done, they inspected it, they liked it. I ended up with an assignment fee of $16,000, right? For a total purchase price of $183,000 to that hedge fund. Now I'm going to go over how this deal happened, how it worked. The great thing about this deal was that the initial offer price they gave me was actually $7,000 under this, right? They sent a price to me at $176,000. And you'll see, the contract was at 167. I kind of knew the rehab wasn't that heavy. So a $9,000 spread, right? 167,000 on the contract, and they gave me an offer of 176,000. This was the email they sent to me after their inspection. You'll see the inspection is completed, and the final number on this property is going to be $183,000, right? They had an anticipated rehab number of $30,000. A lot of these hedge funds, will just put this number on every property you send them, right? 30,000, 30,000. Some will say 40,000, 40,000. They just apply it to every property they get. Once they inspected the property, it was actually in better shape than they thought it was going to be in. So the rehab came back at $23,000, and you'll see in red, right? They're replacing some damaged siding, removing trash, new water heater, right? But if we go back, that means they $7,000 pretty much they gave back to me, right? So their initial offer was $176,000. After they inspected it, their final offer went up to 183,000. Awesome, right? So you get that email. That's a great day, and that was a great day for me. Trust me. These happen. I'd say a couple times a year. This is actually that was a good one for us. So these are the comps that I saw. Now, these comps are from this year, so about a year later. But in this market, it's been a pretty stable market. So it's about the same right now. You'll see these comps, the average comes out to about 203,000. We have one at 194, 212. You can see landscaping's great. The inside of these properties are great. They've been rehab, kind of holistic rehab for this price point. Again, right, I sold it to them at $183,000, about $20,000 off of the ARV, came at 90% of the ARV, right? If I were to go to a mom and pop buyer with the little bit of fixes that need to be made, you can anticipate probably about a 65% to 70% offer, which means they would have been around the 132 mark, 132,000, right? So as the wholesaler, I'm now taking an offer of $132,000 back to that seller. I don't think this deal gets done in that term, right? 167,000, the seller was very happy with that offer. So it's kind of a win-win for everyone here on this deal. And so now let's see how we can find these type of deals, right? So this is kind of, we're getting into the good stuff here. Now we like to choose a market, right? And I always say, pick a market where the first time home buyer market is somewhere within the 200,000 to 300,000 range. Like the median price of first time home buyer homes are in that 200 to 300 range. It's a good marker for hedge funds. So once we find a market like that, we want to find the properties that are up for rent. And so again, we're going straight to Zillow. Zillow's that free software we can obviously go. Everyone knows Zillow. It's been around, and then we're going to look at for rent. So all these properties in this market are currently for rent. And you'll see this kind of list. You can, when you're on Zillow, you can scroll up and down on this list. And then we have all these properties that are for rent. And so we get to the next slide here, right at all the rentals, find one with a watermark. You see this watermark right in the middle of the picture, right? So every picture on this specific listing is going to have this watermark. So we want to hone in on that watermark. And if I go back to the last slide, right, it's this property right here. So we looked at all the rentals available, and this one popped up. And so now that's the one we're looking at, right? So most hedge funds have in-house property management teams which use these watermarked photos, right? Sometimes their property management team is going to have a different name to it. So that might take a little more time to figure out who the actual hedge fund owns that property management company. But they are branding on their pictures on the listings, and you'll see that. And so now that we've identified that name, right? You've identified the hedge fund. We need to find the right point of contact on LinkedIn. And you can find them by people, right? So we took that Resi America name. And so we're going to bounce back, Resi America, see that little symbol they have. Bounce here, same symbol, Resi America. So just in the search bar on LinkedIn, right? So this is the LinkedIn website. Again, another free resource that we can go to. So now that we're in LinkedIn, we can research the company, Resi America. And then as you can find them by clicking people, right? So now there's a people tab, and this is going to bring up all the people that work for this company, right? They have this company name in their bio on LinkedIn. And we want to find acquisitions, sales, what have you. Acquisition is always a good word to find, right? These are people that are out searching to acquire the properties for the fund. So find acquisitions in job title. And you can see here, Christopher. I feel bad for Christopher here. I know a lot of people are going to go look for him, but he has the acquisition manager at Resi America, right? That's his title. That's his title in his profile. So that's a great person to go reach out to, right? These hedge fund employees are the point of contact and oftentimes the decision maker when it comes to buying deals from you. They're going to analyze it. They're going to intake the deal from you. Those are the people that we want to work with and build relationships with. And so now that we've identified the right point of contact, aka acquisition manager, could be acquisition analyst, could just be acquisition. We just want to reach out to them. This is something that I always kind of send a nice professional message. Take a picture if you want. I don't copy it, do what you have to do. But in the subject, we have Florida, Tennessee, SFR disposition. SFR stands for single family rentals, right? So I'm pretty much reaching out saying, hey, I have some single family rentals. I know y'all buy single family rentals. And, I am contacting you in regards to seeking a disposition solution for our Florida and Tennessee single family rentals. My team and I work in several markets, although our main markets are the Florida and Tennessee markets. Kind of like to pinpoint with them a little bit here. We have great relationships in Florida and Tennessee, and we do our own due diligence on each property we supply while being in direct contact with either the home seller or seller's agent. That is a big point to make here, right? This means that you have control of the deal. Hedge funds do not like to work daisy chains, and they will not. A lot of them will not even look at it if it's daisy chain, right? So they want to know that that they don't like that, right? They want to work with who has control of the deal. And so after looking at the properties, hedge fund name here has recently bought, I see we have a good amount of properties that fit the criteria. And that's, we go back to finding those rentals. We have a property that has a bunch of those rentals with those watermarks around it. We know that that property probably fits what they're buying. And so we ask, are you the correct person to talk to? If so, what is the best email and phone number for you? Now, they're looking to work with people. They want to build relationships with people. So that's their goals. The goal is to find good relationships with people that understand how they buy. And so would love the opportunity to expand the conversation and see how we can best help hedge fund name, best James Mosler. So again, if you want to take a picture of that, it's a very easy message to send. I'm very direct. They know what we're getting at. If you don't reach the right person, most likely they will send you to the right point of contact. So this is literally messages that I've had come back to me. And so, hello, thank you for reaching out. The best person for you to talk to at hedge fund name would be, here's the contact person's name. He can be reached at, and here's his email address. Very simple, right? They sent me this right away. I appreciate it. I will definitely reach out. And I do have a partner in my business. His name is Sean. And this is a response. We have a couple responses that I've received here. And so, we got something going on there.
All right, who's messing with a freaking Zoom?
Someone's marking us up here. But hey, it's all right. So you can see, so we got that email from someone else at the company, and we sent a message out to them, pretty much that same message we started with in the beginning. And this was a return message from them, a return email from them. This is gold, right? This is exactly what we want to get to. This is the buy box of the hedge fund. This is what we're looking for. So this is going to guide us moving forward on what properties to bring them. right? So a lot of people call this reverse wholesaling. You figure out what they want and then you go find it for them. So for this specific hedge fund, this is their single family homes between 100 and 500,000 in price. Very typical. Some are a little tighter, maybe 1 to 400,000. Really depends on the market. If it's an expensive market, say like Denver, Colorado, a little more up there. Even Phoenix, I think a lot of you are probably from the Phoenix market. Homes there tend to be a little more expensive in the first time home buyer range. But then we just kind of go down the line here. Homes must be minimum in size 3.2. That's very typical for hedge funds. 3.2 is gold and 1,400 square feet, right? Nothing under this threshold will be considered. Florida deals are 3.2 and 1,100 square feet minimum, right? So these are all minimums that we need to pay attention to. This hedge fund, most homes must be 1950s or newer, prefer brick or block. If wood frame, must be 60s or newer. So that's all information that we want to be able to acquire. And so we know what we're sending them is what they're looking for. And then rehab estimate must not exceed $30,000. In some cases, after inspection, if rehab comes back higher, we may still purchase the home depending on quality and or area of home. As you can see, 30,000, they really like that lipstick cosmetic rehab, right? New flooring, new paint, new countertops, maybe a new roof. They're fine with that. Maybe a new HVAC, new water heater. Just very simple. Get it rent ready with 30 grand. That's their goal. They love those. And also, this hedge fund must be vacant or vacant at close, right? We will be not taking on any tenants. No leases will be approved for tenants. So you always have to take that into account. The one thing that this hedge fund does allow, owner post occupancy offered 1 to 3 months. That's another typical thing, right? So they understand that sometimes homeowners need this money in their pocket before they can go find their new property. And so they can kind of work around that only if necessary, right? To make the deal happen, subject to underwriter approval after inspection. In this case, they will charge them rent, right? And it will be rent per day and it will be market rent. And market rent means after they rehab this property, what can it rent for? They're going to start charging that day one with this owner. And a lot of times they will hold this money in escrow, right? So if I'm like, hey, this owner needs a month in the house, well, they're going to hold that full month of payment in escrow to make sure that they get paid. Oh, too close there. Okay. And then avoid homes in these locations. Double yellow line roads. So we see that a lot like highways, rural areas, even in some neighborhoods, like the main roads that cut through neighborhoods all have the double yellow line roads, close to train tracks, commercial properties. So if there's like a mall across the street, or even like a school, things of that sort, they kind of want to stay out of high traffic roads or areas close to highways, dead end streets, close to power lines. So what I say, we're looking for the subdivision type house, right? Nice in the subdivision, not too much traffic. They love those cookie cutter properties. And then in addition, if a property is sent to us for an offer, our analysts come back with an offer that is off by more than 25,000 from the asking price. We will not be able to extend that offer to you on that property, right? So they don't want us asking for these astronomical asking prices and wasting their time, right? This is how they avoid that. Please be mindful of not overshooting asking prices. For example, if your asking price is 400,000 and our analyst determines the value is 365, even if the price works for you, we would not be able to extend the offer for 30 days to you since the difference is more than 25,000, right? In that example, it's 35,000. They're just going to turn it away because their offer price is too far away from what you're asking. If the asking price would have been 390 and we came in at 365 or higher, then yes, we would extend that offer. So you're asking 390 for the property. They come back with an initial offer at 365, good to go. Simple. And then this last little line here, overall, we are looking for newer and larger properties with lower renovation costs in good neighborhoods and areas. So again, simple properties to turn over, rent ready quickly. And here is another hedge fund, an email from another hedge fund. This is coming from Joey. I have a good relationship with Joey. Now, this was probably a couple of years ago now. But you can see this is a big time buyer. Thank you so much for reaching out to us. We are actively acquiring roughly 300 to 500 houses per month, and we are excited to start analyzing and making offers on your properties. That's a big number. As a general rule of thumb, we can be very competitive on properties that follow the 1% rule. Now, I know a lot of you understand the 1% rule, but if you don't, here it goes, right? So you have a property that you're trying to sell for, say, $300,000. The 1% means that you can rent it for $3,000 a month. That's 1%, 1% of the purchase price per month. If we can only rent out the property for 0.75% of the asking price, we could still potentially make a reasonable offer, right? So you send them a property at, say, $400,000 and they could rent for $300 or $3,000 a month, we still got a chance here. That's a pretty good spread right there. And this is because our offer price is primarily based on three metrics: asking price, estimated renovation costs, and market rent, right? So most hedge funds are taking these three things into play, right? These are the three main markers for hedge funds, and a lot of mom and pop buyers as well. So ARV plays a very minor role in our underwriting process, which means that we can, if these numbers hit correctly, we can really stretch the top of the ARV market as long as, say, rent's good in the neighborhood. ARV plays a very minor role in our underwriting process, so it's best to send us properties where the market rent can justify the sales price rather than the sales comps. As of now, we can only conduct traditional or double closings without pass-through funding, right? That's where our gators come into play. If we need pass-through funding, what we call that is transactional funding on a double close. And we are working on being able to conduct assignments. So this with this hedge fund is about relationships. Right now, I can assign them properties. When you start working with them in the first place, it's probably not possible, right? But once you establish a good relationship, they kind of open up some more channels. Please use the attached template for submitting your deals after you've got a chance to review it and familiarize yourself with the process. And let me know if you have any questions or concern. Our goal is to have a response to you for each deal within 24 to 48 hours. Look forward to working with you. Right, so some hedge funds, you can kind of put together an email in a certain format and that works for them. Some hedge funds, obviously it's a big time hedge fund, right? They will send you a form. There'll be like explanation on how to fill out the form, and then you just kind of use that moving forward to bounce back and forth with them. And then, we send them a property today at a certain asking price. Their goal is to get you an initial offer within 24 to 40 hours. So good turnaround there for us. All right, so now time to go hunting for deals. Again, we're doing this all for free. That's the goal here, to show you how we can get into the game for free. Back to Zillow. Now we're looking at our market again, and we're going to go for everything that's for sale. And so what we want to do is we want to find some keywords to get discounted deals, right? Meaning that if they have a property on market, they might have some of these words in the listing, meaning that they would probably be open to negotiating with you, right? So motivated sellers, discounted, price to sell, price improvement, mean they probably just cut the asking price, which means they might be willing to cut the asking price even more. Cash deals, that's an indicator that they just want quick cash close kind of stuff. Tenant occupied. Now, again, some hedge funds are okay with tenant occupied, some are not. But as you kind of get farther into wholesaling, even if there's a tenant in the property with a lease in place, you can figure out ways to get them out before closing, right? Cash for keys, things of that sort. There's even times where I've had a property that's been vacant and I've been able to move a tenant from a property that I'm wholesaling into a property I own. So it's like a double bonus for me. Reduction, and then FSBO, right? For sale by owner. A lot of these for sale by owners, you can really kind of negotiate your direct to the contact, direct to the owner. And then another hit here is days on market. more than 90 days, right? So at that 90-day on market, I mean, your sellers start to get a little scared. Maybe their home is not going to sell. So just another way to find properties that you may be able to get a discount on. And then as we kind of went over earlier, the level of rehab is pretty big for funds. Now, the one I showed you said, 30,000 is where they cap. Most of them will kind of move that to about 50, maybe even 60,000. But definitely no fire damage properties, no full guts, no heavy mold, things that just take time to fix, right? They want to turn and burn these properties, get them rented as quick as they can. And so we have a little thing. So we want to make sure we are sending the correct deal, right? To establish a relationship with these acquisition people, they can only speak with so many people in a day, right? So once they know that you can perform for them, they are much more likely to start that relationship with you and get things going. So, when we're focusing on market properties, we want to see if we can get some things around 75% of that on market asking price. Now, that has some sway here and there, but for a property that's on market for 400 grand, if we can get that at about $300,000 or maybe a little bit more, I mean, that's a good place to start negotiation, right? So then we know that we can send it to a hedge fund in that mid to upper 300 range, and we have room in case they lower their offer after the inspection. So we kind of want to make sure that we're pinning in a good deal, especially for the first deal that we reach out with. And so we can sell it to that 85, 90% of asking price. And then this is the name of my group, Triton REI Group. I do a lot of bird dogging with people that are kind of in your position. We sign JV agreements. And this will be, again, covered in the next trainings, right? We'll do the 3-part training starting next Wednesday. So we'll go over a lot of that stuff moving forward. And so now we have some, frequently asked questions. Now I'm sure we have a lot of questions coming up from everyone. So a lot of these questions, I think I have like 10 or 11 questions on here that are questions that most people are going to have. So what exactly is a hedge fund buyer and how are they different from your traditional buyer, right? We kind of covered that in the very, very beginning. I'm sure some people joined after that. But your hedge fund, right? They're pulling in capital from a bunch of investors and they have terms that they need to abide by for that capital. Sometimes it's we need to deploy this money right away. We want to buy properties in these markets, things of that sort, right? It's kind of the SOPs of the deal. Hedge fund buyer just bringing in a bunch of capital to then fulfill the terms. Where your traditional buyers, your mom and pop, your fix and flipper, your rental buyer, just a much different buyer, right? How do I know if a property fits the hedge fund buy box? Now, there's a couple ways to do this. If we are able to make contact with acquisition people at a certain hedge fund, we would just ask them straight up, hey, what's your buy box? A lot of times they'll just send what those emails that I showed earlier were like. Another way to know if properties are fitting in their buy box is if they have rentals on the same street or the same neighborhood, right? If they have rentals on the same street or same neighborhood, we know that they're buying those properties. Pretty good indicator, right? Do hedge funds buy in every market or specific cities? They do not buy in every market. You can find some big buyers in most markets, but for the big hedge funds, they really all buy in the same markets, right? They're looking for not the really, really expensive markets, but they do want the major cities in the kind of lower end priced markets. That's very good for them. Also, markets that are landlord friendly. A lot of us know those, right? So places like Tennessee, Texas, Arizona, Florida, right? Those are great markets. The Carolinas. A lot of them aren't really buying in New York or California. Just the laws there don't really help them out too much. And how fast can hedge funds close? Now, this is also another relationship-based question. Typically, the 30-day mark is a good mark to run with. Once you establish a relationship and you can start moving with them quicker, I mean, that could be down to 20 days, sometimes even quicker, right? So to start, 30 days is always a good marker. What condition do properties need to be in for hedge funds to buy? Again, we did go over that. I would say, if it's looking to be more than $60,000, it's probably not the right property for a hedge fund. It's going to be too much work for them, and it's not really a in and out type of project. Will they buy properties with tenants in place? Again, it's kind of 50-50. Some do, some won't. If there is a lease in place, they will honor that lease as long as it's like usually 3 months or shorter. Rule of thumb though, if there's a tenant in there, the questions that I'm asking sellers is, hey, can you send me your lease that's in place? When does it expire? Does the tenant know you're looking to sell the property? That's always a big one, right? Sometimes tenants don't know. But also, it's like, hey, can I offer some cash for keys? And it's another number to work inside the deal, right? Do hedge funds buy off-market properties, on market, or both? So all hedge funds buy off-market properties. So that's never a problem, obviously. On market, I would say probably 2/3 of hedge funds buy on-market properties. They just want to see some type of discount, though. They're not going to buy it for the on-market price. They do have in-house teams that go on market and look for properties. So sometimes you come across ones that they've already seen, but hey, if it's still on market, that means it's never been under contract with them. So those are still deals that can be made. What happens if the inspection uncovers big repairs, right? So there's times where, sellers don't really tell you the full story of a property. Obviously, we all know that. We know the term, buyers are liars, but sellers are worse. Everyone knows that. So we come across properties where, hey, are there foundation issues? Oh, no, it's perfect. Don't even worry about it. And then you send the inspector, and all of a sudden the foundation has 20 cracks in it. The hedge fund's going to say, no go. So a lot of times if the inspection uncovers big repairs or just repairs that add up, and that can add up quickly, right? Over that, say, $60,000 range, they will come back and say, hey, no deal. And how quickly will I know if they want the deal? Usually within 48 hours, sometimes 24 hours. Again, once your relationship gets better with some of these hedge funds, sometimes it's same day, sometimes it's within hours, sometimes it still is within 24 hours. So, but usually they're pretty good at getting back to us. How do I get paid as a bird dog or JV partner? So, I will cover a lot of this in the next trainings moving forward. But we do sign JV agreements with terms, so everyone's protected. Obviously, that goes to the title company. And I would say typically, it's around 1% of the final offer price. It's about typical. But it all depends. It all depends on.
Bummer.
Oh, we got one. Um, but it really depends on, how far along the deal is. I can jump in at any moment if we're partners on it, if it needs
What is
negotiating
that?
and all that kind of stuff, right? All right, I think is it Ellie Alovis? I think we're hearing some of your feedback there, Ellie. Okay, and then what's the best way to build long-term relationships with hedge funds? This really goes back to some of those emails we saw from them. If we're just sending them overpriced property over overpriced property, I mean, you send them two in a row, you can get blacklisted pretty quickly, right? So we want to make sure that, especially the first deal we're sending it's a good deal. And, obviously we got to learn how to comp and do those type of things. But we want to make sure that when they're spending their time looking at our deals, that they're excited for the next one, right? I think that's kind of all the questions I had here. I'm sure we probably have a bunch of questions in the chat now. And then here, I do have a little gift for y'all for staying this long with me. So you probably want to take out your phones again. I compiled a list of the hedge fund buy box that I personally work with. Anywhere from about 20 hedge funds right now. So I want to give it to you so you don't have to go find these people and build relationships yourself. It's kind of a fast track to knowing if a deal works. And this is pretty much where we're at, right? So these are some of the hot markets right now. You'll see the state, the counties, right? These are all the counties in those states, the property type. So this is a very easy just marker. Like if it fits in here and the price makes sense, I mean, they're buying it. No condos, no manufactured homes, no multifamily, nothing funky, single family homes in a subdivision. Also, they hate in-ground pools. So no hedge fund's going to buy a property with in-ground pools. That elevates insurance and risk. And then condition, light to moderate repairs, no extensive structural foundation issues, no fire damage, kind of what we went over earlier. These are very typical things. And that kind of just encompasses, like, obviously a bunch of the hedge funds, some of these property types kind of shift around a little bit, but this kind of main buy box, most of them fit within this. So that I think that was the last slide we had for today. Hopefully we were able to pull all that information in and take some pictures, and I believe this is recorded, Kevin. This is recorded. So I do have, obviously you see my YouTube channel is just James Mossholder Real Estate. I'm sure at some point it will get thrown on there. There's also some other videos on there that you can go watch. I'm not really a social media person per se, but people like Kevin has said, get your butt up on there and post some education for some people. So I've started, what have you. Feel free to check them out if you want, up to you. And then there's my direct email address. Um, if you have any questions about some properties you're looking at, or want someone to work with, obviously shoot me an email, and we can kind of go from there. And in the chat, I believe we should have the link for the next trainings coming up again at Wednesday, 2 p.m. Eastern, I believe is the first one. But you can go ahead and register for that. And we'll kind of get to the next part of this and, kind of go over some of this stuff again. It'll be a lot more interactive. Um, and hopefully that kind of can help some people out here get started and kind of get moving, and these resources again, that there's Zillow, LinkedIn is really where I got started, and kind of just get launched from there, and see what we can do. So I think the link it looks like Kevin just posted the link. So go ahead, click on that. Yeah, click on that link and register for it. It looks like you might have some bird dog trainings, and so my training will be much more towards the hedge fund world. So I'm sure a lot of this bird dog stuff will be great as well. So definitely, the more education, the better. And whoever shows up, we can have some conversations and hopefully do some work together and get some deals done and go from there. See. And so now we have some questions. So now I'll see what kind of questions we have in the chat. We'll kind of start answering down the line here. And so in great question. I'm gonna just start with a very simple question. Gotcha. Okay, cool. So all right, so Mario Gonzalez, why the hedge funds don't look for the properties themselves? Oh, they definitely do. They definitely do. So they have off-market teams, they have on-market teams, but working with wholesalers is just another path for them. And at the same time, if they're looking for properties themselves, that means they're hiring people, they're paying salaries, they're paying all these fees. They can just work with wholesalers for free, technically, right? Or for the assignment fees. And a lot of times it's just another channel for them, right? So for us as wholesalers, we use Facebook, Instagram, bird dogging with other people just to get as many deals in the door as possible. Same with hedge funds, right? They're finding deals of any funnel they can, and wholesalers just another funnel for them. Will we get the recording after? I believe so. And again, it'll be on the YouTube, so you can just kind of go to my YouTube and check it out there. Let's see, Tony Martin, getting ahead of the presentation, but my question is regarding any framework with how your deals are presented to the buyer, everything to include and information that helps them have it all in front of them when presented. All right, so again, every hedge fund wants you to send deals to them. the way they want, right? Some will provide forms, and they're interactive forms where you put the property on there and they have connection to it, and you just go back and forth on it. They'll drop the price in there, they'll drop notes in there. Some will say, hey, send me an email with the property in the subject and these stats of the property below. I would say, always get as many pictures as you can, inside and out. And you really want to know details of the big ticket items, right? You want to know if the roof needs to be replaced, if the HVAC needs to be replaced, the water heater, the state of the electrical and plumbing, right? These notes for them makes a lot of sense because these are big ticket items that can really up a rehab budget quickly. Hopefully that answered that. Did I determine the assignment fee or did the buyer? So that's all through spread. So Enco, good question, right? So what I'm doing is I'm comping a property based on those three metrics, right? The rental comps, the ARV purchase comps, and then the rehab, right? When we put all those things together, that's going to determine where we're at on that 1% to 0.75% layout. And so we can base our asking price on that specifically. I think I lost my, oh wait, there we go. 7 feet. That being said, obviously they will give initial asking price. So sometimes you do got to go back to seller and ask for a discount. Sometimes they will inspect it because the spread is good. The rehab will come back a little heavy. So their final offer price might be below your price on your contract with the seller. So then again, just back to negotiating, right? And then every dollar you make of spread will become your assignment fee. Let's see, more questions. Will there be a recording? Yes, somewhere. All right, so Brendan Rake, maybe Reiki, I'm not sure if I'm saying that right. How much time do these hedge funds usually need for inspection period? That does depend on the hedge fund. Some 4 days post. Usually, I say it post inspection, right? And that's how I kind of frame my contract as well. Something that I will go over in these next trainings. But a lot of times, I'm telling seller, "Hey, I need 5 business days post inspection." That usually gives us the amount of time that we need for the inspection period. So once they inspect a property, the final offer usually comes within 48 hours. It's usually the marker that most of them will send it back, although sometimes not. Sometimes it could take 3, 4 business days. Now, hedge funds work business days, right? So just keep that in the back of your mind. They do not work weekends. So every time they put some type of time frame on their their emails or what have you, it's always business days. Do they buy anywhere in California? Oh man. Unfortunately, not really. No, that's a no-go for 99% of even funds in general, not just hedge fund. Hedge fund, I would say probably zero of them buy in California. Some funds, some smaller end funds might buy there, but I don't really focus there. So let's see about work right now, recorded for a few minutes. Are there any states they are not buying in or prefer to buy in? So, okay, Enco, are there any states they prefer to buy in? Yeah, so again, it comes back to that 200 to I'd say $400,000 range, right? Some go up again to that $500,000 range. But they really stick in the first time home buyer price range of every market they buy in, right? They know that that's the biggest buy or the biggest pool of renters, right? That's what they're after. They're after the biggest pool of renters in every market. So in more expensive markets, Denver, Miami, it's going to be a little higher. In lower markets like Cleveland or Little Rock or Memphis, it's going to be a little lower. Emails, we can do that. Same strategy with can you do the same strategy with multifamily? So multifamily is kind of comped slightly different than your single family home or even duplex or what have you, right? When we look at multifamily, it's more like you're comping a business rather than an asset that's going to make rent moving forward. So I would say it's not really seen the same as multifamily, much different. Um, and then we have 1% of total deal or assignment fee. So, Edgar, I'm assuming you're talking about when we make a JV agreement, how much will the bird dog get paid out at the end of the deal? And it would be 1% of the total deal, right? So if it's a $300,000 house, what have you, a 3% fee is typically in line. Again, it just depends on, how much of the work each of us are doing. So it's a very fluid number, something that we do cover, obviously, at the time of the deal. All right. Haney Corey, where are you finding the hedge funds? Good question. You can watch this again if you'd like on YouTube. Finding a lot of property managers with the watermark, not necessarily hedge funds, 100%, right? So, a lot of these property management companies, the bigger ones, will watermark their pictures as well on listings. Once you've seen one, though, you can kind of identify those right away, right? So you can kind of like push those ones to the side. So, yeah, it's going to take a little bit of effort here, right? But once you identify those ones, you just kind of ignore them and on to the next. Um, so we can send them to you to review, possibly JV. Of course, now, just so you all know, I do have a pretty busy business, right? So the people that want to JV, I'm definitely going to work with first, right? I have people to pay like anyone else here. I got partners and expenses, and so if I have extra time, yeah, maybe I can help you with your deal. But people that want to JV, obviously they go to the top of the list. Boom, boom, boom. It is recorded. So Millie, when is the next Zoom? Again, we have that planned for this Wednesday coming up at 2 p.m. Eastern time. So I'm in New York, so I work EST and 2 p.m. Wednesday. And again, the Kevin posted the link in here, so you can just register right with that link. Pace is having the bird dog training all week. Awesome. Again, the more bird dog trainings, the better. Um, so Nick Segnowich, how do you know if it's a hedge fund or just property management company? So good question. A lot of times you can take the name on the watermark, take that into LinkedIn, and you can see the description of the company, right? That would tell you right away. We only manage properties, or hey, we're buying properties so many a year. We take in capital investments. You can even take the name to Google, and that would a lot of times you can get good information from Google. Um, so there's different ways, but again, it's all free out there for you. Oh, and copy the recordings for next week. Questions, okay, from Caitlin Denman. Can you just use Zillow to find them, or would you also have to use paid software to try to reach out to the sellers via mail marketing? All right, so a big reason why we went to Zillow is because we're looking at on-market deals in this example. Right. So with it, and again, I mean, I would say 50% of the properties I wholesale to hedge funds are on market deals, right? So they're there. There are plenty of them to go after. Eventually, and with on market deals, sometimes they're for sale by owner. Most of the time there's an agent involved, right? So then that's when you present yourself to the agent. Hey, I've seen that this seller's in a sticky situation. They're motivated. They need to sell. Hey, tell me a little bit about that. What's going on? Hey, this one probably doesn't work for me, but I do work with some of the biggest buyers that I know they would like this property. Would you like me to kind of see what we can do for you and help the seller out here, right? So we really want to come from a place of helping everyone out here. We want to help the sellers. And we know by those keywords that we're searching that they need some help. And we know working with real estate agents, some of them work hard, most of them don't. Most of them just throw the listing up there and hope that it sells. And And a lot of times it just doesn't, right? So when we come to an agent, hey, we're going to go market this thing for you for free. I know you're marketing it on Zillow. Um, let's get this thing under contract with us. I think we can make this price work. If you're willing to do that, then I can go find you a buyer. What do I say to them when approaching first time if I'm unexperienced and don't know any markets? Now, obviously come to the training, right? Because I can definitely help with some sales stuff. That's my background. Um, but it's always a good thing to just tell them what's up. Hey, I'm new to this, right? I'm getting into real estate. I'm talking to agents, right? Hey, agent, can you help me out? I think this is a good price for this. What do you think? So it's really like, again, real estate's all about relationships. Working with sellers, working with agents, it's about relationships. Working with hedge funds, it's about relationships. So when we are able to perform on either side of the deal, especially for real estate agents, they are much more likely to work with you in the future. And that's how we can actually work ourselves into off-market deals, right? We perform with an on-market deal for them. Then they have a deal in their pocket that they're thinking about listing in a week from now. And we're in communication with them. Hey, can I just have a shot at that one? Awesome. So that's a way to kind of get to some more deals, what have you. But it's really just let them know what's up. I mean, you can be totally honest with people, and most of the time they can tell when you're not being honest. Do you sign the JV agreement before or after you send the deals?
Yeah.
Oh, right.
So you give leverage.
Yes. And again, you can definitely, if you need some credibility, you can say, hey, let me bring my partner James into this. We can really work the deal between us three. And once you start talking with the sellers and you've come to an asking price that works for the sellers, at that point, you can come to me or bring me in, and we'll see where we're at in the deal. And then at that time, we'll determine, hey, yeah, time to get a JV agreement going. And then I can kind of shoot this to my buyers, and we can kind of go from there. Um, Okay, Joshua Jones, how do you determine prices sell to hedge funds? So, back in the training, we kind of went over that a little bit with, what we anticipate the rehab to be, the purchase price of the property and the rental income, right? The gross yield of rent, right? So if I know I'm looking at a property as a quick example, if I know I'm looking at wholesaling a property and its on market asking price is $200,000 and it needs about $50,000 of work, right? That total price in for the hedge fund is 250, right? Can that property rent for somewhere in the 2 to 2,500 range? If it can, well, then you can kind of try to build a spread from there, right? Maybe you try to get it under contract at 170, 160, knowing that they might give you an offer around 190 or something along those lines, right? So you really have to take into account the rental income that asset can produce. And by rental income, how much can it rent a month, right? Contract. Do you have to get the deal under contract from the seller okay, so Jamie Prigmore, do we have to get the deal under contract from the seller as a wholesaler? The worst thing you can do is send a deal to a hedge fund that's not under contract and then come back and be like, we like that asking price, we'll give you that asking price. And then you go back to the seller and the seller's like, oh no, it's gone, or I don't want that anymore, right? Nothing will get you blacklisted quicker from hedge funds. So just keep that in mind. If they're giving you their asking price, they want that deal. And that actually brings me up to another point. Do you go ahead and blast deals to all your hedge funds at once? Typically, no. Typically, I'm picking one, maybe two to send it to first, right? Another thing is like if I send it to one hedge fund and for whatever reason I'm off, then I know for the next hedge fund that I can kind of reevaluate my pricing here, right? So just keep that in mind. We really like if a hedge fund says you want it, you want the property available for them to actually pursue it. Okay, Yoseo Perdomo. So like bird dogging to an investor, they said they will close the deal when you bring deal to them. So bringing the deal to hedge fund, you got to do all that done beforehand, right? Because they're not closing nothing. Um, what I think, what I just, I might have this wrong, but it sounds like, do you want to get the property under contract before you send to a hedge fund? I think that's what we're being asked here, and correct, right? And so most of the time, and you know, I do come from a different place when I'm talking to sellers because my group, we do buy properties, right? And I would say for every 10 to 15 properties I wholesale, I probably buy one. You know, so my credibility can say, hey, you know, I'm looking at this for my group. Just so you know, though, if I don't take this on myself, I do have some people in my network that might like this one. So it's okay if I show it to them or what have you. But I do need to get it under contract so that my group can do a full underwriting and kind of move from there. So again, you know, we just want to be honest. It's not a big deal. And then Isaac Santana, what's the negotiation process look like? Is it all email? And so my assumption is you're talking about the negotiation process with the hedge fund. It depends, right? So some hedge funds I call, I text, some I email. Usually when I send them a property, it's always email or a form that they've supplied. So it always starts with an email and then you can kind of go from there depending on the relationship you have with that contact. You know, they don't often put their phone numbers out there because they know what that means. You can always, you know, their emails are sometimes out there or they'll give you their email. So to start, just email and then, you know, yeah, they're asking questions and going back forth through email. They all have their inspection teams and they kind of transition you from email them to email inspection team. They do have preferred title companies. So most of this can be done through email as you kind of move more with them. Then you can kind of sometimes get them on the phone, text them and you know, keep building that relationship. But definitely in the beginning, it's mostly emails for sure with hedge funds. And who will open escrow or the hedge funds themselves? So Millie, who will open escrow? Definitely a good question. So what's happening here, right, is we're getting the deal under contract. Now, depending on the deal and who we want to send it to, we pretty much know what title company they work with. That's information they will give you. So you want to make sure that you can really get the file to their preferred title company. And so, you know, just like any deal, you probably want to get that contract to the title company. Um, and then as they give you the initial asking price, you say, yes, that's a good one. They're going to inspect it. And then they really will not go under contract with you until you have finalized an asking price with them. Now, we're getting into the weeds here a little bit more, and that, you know, there's going to be a whole lot of explanation around that. But let's wait till we get to the next trainings here because I mean we can go on that quite a bit here, but that's a good question. Um, you will most likely be opening escrow yourself. Um, boom, boom, boom. What are you potentially offering sellers? Ideal offer. So this is kind of like back in the training, right? I kind of just say, you know, if you can offer, I'm usually starting around 75% of the asking price, you know. Now that's a very rough number, right? Because as the price of homes get a little higher, that might seem like a very steep discount, right? But when you're in the 200 range, 250 range, you know, 70 grand off of that, it's not that big of a discount, right? So it kind of goes up and down a little bit here and there. But if you know you want to get the deal done, 75% of the asking price is a very good marker. Page 700, right? Okay, so ZLM, PSA, so purchase and sell agreement with seller and JV agreement with the hedge fund. Is that correct? No, no. So we're gonna have a purchase and sell between us and the seller, right? And then depending on the hedge fund, we're either going to assign the deal to the hedge fund or we'll have to double close the deal with the hedge fund. Um, you know, the JV agreement will be between me and you, right? or whoever you're doing a deal with, right? Just that joint venture in the middle of the deal with your partner that you're doing the deal with. So purchase and sell with the seller, JV agreement between whoever you're bird dogging with or working with, and then that whole deal will be sent over to the hedge fund as an assignment, or you will have to have a new contract to double close with them. Okay. Very Olvera. As a bird dog, do we need to have a contract signed with the agent to send you property info, or do we only get as much information as possible? So good question. I mean, depends on the deal, right? If it's a screaming deal, I say get that thing under contract as soon as you can, right? You don't want them to think about that anymore. Now, if you're like, maybe this is a good deal, then that's probably a good time to bring me in, and we can look over the deal. And I would say, hey, yeah, let's get this thing under contract, or let's try this or let's try that to kind of get them down a little bit more if need be. Um, Jonathan Sanchez, do they buy townhomes? Most most of them do not. There's one or two out there that do buy townhomes. Some of the smaller funds will buy townhomes. But they look for deep discounts on townhomes, definitely. Jasmine Moore, do the hedge funds negotiate, or sorry, do the hedge funds negotiate, or is their price one price deal? No, a lot of them will negotiate. Again, this goes back to the relationship though. What typically will happen is you'll have your contract price with the seller, and then obviously you want to build a spread from there. So then you're going to send an initial offer price to the hedge fund, and they're going to send you a price back, right? There's usually no negotiating there when you're first starting. At my point, I can negotiate a little bit there, but usually they're going to send you an offer price, and that's the offer price. They're going to go through the inspection process, and they're going to come back with a final price. Sometimes you can get them down a little bit more from there. So there's a little negotiating. Um, but I would say, hey, most likely not. So Marlin, so good question, right? So it would take 2 to 3 no-go deals, then they would blackball you. So not necessarily, right? We're talking about no-go deals that just don't make sense, right? So we're talking about sending them something that's $100,000 over what it should be, or sending them a deal that they come back to you and say, yes, we like that deal, and then you say, oh shoot, that deal's gone. Actually, sorry. Those are the things that they can blackball you really quickly on. Now, just understand these people work with a ton of people, right? They work with a ton of people. And so they're just going to focus on the people that bring them good deals. It just makes sense for them. So if you're sending them 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 10 bad deals in a row and they can't do anything with them, yeah, they'll probably just stop responding to you. So that definitely can happen. Now, if you've built a relationship with them over years, then that's when it's like, hey, what's going on with these deals? What are you doing? What are you sending these to me for? And that's happened. I mean, that happens sometimes, but these cash. So Joshua Jones, good question. Are these cash only purchases for hedge funds? And yes, they're only doing cash deals, right? That's what they're looking for. And that comes back to, the fund that they have set up, right? They are taking in money to buy properties in cash. Uh, So how do we JV? So Daniel Powell, so how do we JV on properties ready to go under contract that are not in your buy box, but want to work with you on the dispo to hedge fund connections you already have established? Same email you have listed here. Yeah, yeah. And just so you know, 90% of the deals I sell are to hedge funds. I do sell some to mom and pop, especially in my major markets where I hold a lot of my rentals and my properties. Or sometimes I'll buy them myself. But if it's a good deal, and you need some help working it, yeah, we can still work on it, no problem. So Justin Tazawa. So all we are doing is getting the deal under contract and assigning the contract to them. Again, it depends on the hedge fund, but a lot of times, yeah, that's what's happening, right? We get the deal under contract. Once we have it under contract, we can ask them for a certain price, and then we know it's going to work. Then they're going to go ahead and inspect it, and they say, hey, this is our final offer, and you say, good to go. Boom, we're signing an assignment contract, or at that time, we're sending a contract to them to sign it on the BC side of the deal. Um, if they say they're buying it, they're going to sign the contract. I mean, that's just how it goes. Um, do they buy REO? So that is a great question. That is a sometimes, right? So they most of them do not buy HUD properties, right? But what I have done in the past is if I know it's a great deal, I will go through the HUD buying process, buy the property, and then typically you need to season it for about a week or so before you can offload it to a hedge fund. Sometimes I will get a price from them before I go ahead and purchase it, right? Just to protect my money. But usually I'm only buying that HUD property if I know that I can kind of hold on to it myself. Now, REOs are slightly different, but kind of the same process. Um, it's a very sometimes, right? Again, that's probably more for the next training. Um, what's the average bird dog fee? So Nathan Smith, what's the average bird dog fee you are looking for when selling to a hedge fund? I mean, I'm happy with 15,000 is very like what I shoot for most of the time. But I mean, I've sold for fees in the 30 range. I mean, I think the biggest fee I've ever sold is probably like in the 50, 55 range, 55,000. I've also have sold them deals for 2 or 3,000, right? Kind of all over the board sometimes. Uh, and so Edgar Ariano, I should say. So let's say property is 300,000, so our offer should be 75% of ask price. So our offer should be 225. Correct. And so the reason I say that is because we want to start lower, a little bit lower, right? We don't want to cut ourselves at the knees, right? So there's always room to negotiate. Um, and that's just a good marker. We know that we can build a spread in there, right? Because we want to look for a $20,000, $30,000 spread if we can. Um, but again, that really is going to come back to the properties and where the property is located and the rental income that property can produce, right? If that property can rent for 25, 26, $2,700 a month, um, you can get it in the 230, 240 range, you probably still have a good opportunity to make some money there. So I just always say, as we're talking to a group of people, it's just easy to pinpoint at that 75% of the asking price. Do you have a preferred template of how you want properties sent to you for JVing? Joshua Jones, definitely. So, um, you know, again, this will be kind of covered in the next trainings as well. But to start, typically, it's just like your name, and then the address of the property. Definitely put your full contact in the email. But we want to see pictures. We want to know the timeline, and then we want to see just stats, right? So that's very quick. We're all about quickness here. So bed bath count 3.2, square footage, boom. Um, is it tenant or owner occupied? Yes, no. Is there an HOA? Yes or no? If there's an HOA, are there HOA restrictions? Yes, okay. Um, you know, does it allow rentals? Okay, well, hopefully you're not saying that. Um, but yes, those are really just the property stats, pictures, and then anything that can help negotiate if you need help with negotiating with the seller, like the motivation, why they're selling, their timeline, right? Just the asking price. Those are kind of the main things you always want to get on any deal. Uh, do I need a professional email and website for them to take me seriously? Thanks. So Caitlin, then I mean that's a great question. Um, Not necessarily. So, and just so you know, some hedge funds do require NDAs to be signed, right? Things of that sort. So, some presence is good, but they don't really require any of that stuff, right? They just care about the deal at the end of the day. Is the deal a good deal for them? Or is it a deal that makes sense for the buy box and can they buy it? So that's what they care about. Um, but again, NDAs need to be signed with some of them, which is, also why I do a lot of JVing. the ENCO. So if you get it under contract and the hedge fund says no, how do you get out of your contract with the seller agent? Right, so good question. So again, there's a whole lot of information around that question that will be answered in the coming trainings. But typically, on every contract that I'm signing, I have terms I put on that contract. And those terms allow me to kind of get out of the contract if I need to. Now, depending on where your relationship is with hedge funds, that kind of determines how you can send the deals, at what step you can send the deals in. And so sometimes I can avoid that kind of stuff. But Jonathan Sanchez, good question. Yeah, so release a contract. So there's just terms that I put on every contract that allows me to do that if I need to. So Nathan Smith, thanks. Most owners club members are offering 1,500, 3,000. That's I've talked to for bird dogging fees. So I mean, yeah, that's pretty good, right? You have to understand, we're putting out a lot of education there. It's taking us a lot of time to get that education, to build these relationships and things of that sort. And so I would say, maybe I offer a little bit more than that, but again, just 1% of the deal fee, depending on where we're at. Sometimes it could be more than that. If you've done 50% of the work, then yeah, I mean, we're talking about probably 50% of the deal. Jonathan Sanchez, HOA is a no-go. No, actually, HOAs kind of help you out sometimes. But there are things in HOAs that make it a no-go, right? So things like some HOAs just do not allow rentals. Obviously, that's not going to work for us. Some HOAs require them to approve a tenant, right? So that's a no-go, right? There's no way a hedge fund's going to sign on to that. Some HOAs require 2-year leases or longer. That's a no-go. Hedge funds need to at least be able to establish a 12-month lease. Some want 7-month leases or longer. And so you'll see some HOAs will say no short-term rentals, not a problem. Some HOAs will say leases need to be 7 months or longer. Some HOAs will say 12 months or longer. Those typically are not a problem. So, and then ENCO, so major markets only, meaning like 100,000 population, or markets like 10,000 population plus that fit the criteria of stuff. You probably want to stay a little more major than that, right? I usually use like Birmingham or Little Rock as kind of like the bottom population capture. And so, if you're looking at tertiary markets, those are typically no-go, right? I don't know, like Flagstaff. I don't know if people know Flagstaff, Arizona. That would be a no-go. Tucson does, a market like Tucson would work. Um, and usually we say, somewhere within 50 to 60 miles of the metro center, right? So in Phoenix, Phoenix would be the metro center, and then anywhere within a 60-mile radius of Phoenix. So that includes like Scottsdale and Chandler and Gilbert and in the west side and all that good stuff, right? So that's kind of just an easy marker to live by. And so, I think we've kind of come to the end here. I appreciate obviously all of you for kind of sticking around here, and hopefully a lot of this information was valuable. We'll have the recording up. If you could just put a 1 in the chat, that tells me that, hey, this was valuable. I appreciate that, knowing that this is something that made sense for people and all that good stuff. And hey, definitely appreciate that, y'all. Hopefully we can get y'all started here, and hopefully, a lot of these resources are out there ready to go for you as well. And shoot me some emails, send me some questions. I'm open to it. You got my email. Obviously, there is a little more information on my YouTube, a couple more videos you can watch. That's kind of really my goal here is to help everyone kind of set the foundation here, right? To maybe supercharge your way into that first deal. So hopefully that kind of does that here. Again, the video will be live on my YouTube at some point. That's up to Kevin, I guess. So we'll see if Kevin can fit it into his busy schedule. But appreciate everybody. I'm out of here. Go get some deals, y'all. And feel free to contact me or what have you, and we'll go from there.